Hi everyone and welcome to Level Up Guitar. I'm Kalen and today I'm going to show you how to do this, this, and this. In case you didn't catch that, we're talking about diatonic triads, inversions, and how to voice lead using your 1, 4, and 5 triads up and down the fingerboard. And we're going to do all of that using just a handful of simple and easy to grab chord shapes. And just a quick reminder that if you enjoy my content, you can find a link to my Patreon in the description below and support me for as little as $2 a month. It really helps me to be able to keep making these videos. Let's get started with root position triads. We'll be doing everything today on the D, G, B string set. There's a couple of reasons for this, the main one being that on this string set, the shapes are relatively easy to see and play. The other reason is that they relate directly to some bar chord shapes you may have already learned. We'll also be using the key of G major, as that allows us to start down low on the neck, in third position, and work our way up the fretboard as we proceed through the diatonic chords in the key of G. So here are the 3 triad shapes we'll use to do this. These are your root position, major, minor, and diminished triads. And you can see that they all go root, third, fifth on the D, G, and B strings, respectively. You might notice that each shape has one note change from the previous one. And this is something that students always seem to forget. So please remember this, write it down, put it on a sticky note on your fridge so that you don't forget the answer to the most basic question. What's the difference between a major and a minor chord? Is that a minor chord has a flat third. Okay, let's take these shapes quick and simple through the key of G. So here's your major shape, starting on a G, which will be third position. Going up a whole step, which is 2 frets, we'll trade this out for the minor triad to get the 2 chord A minor. Up another whole step to B minor, the 3 chord, staying with that minor chord shape. Up a half step, switching back to the major triad for the 4 chord C major. Same shape, up a whole step, gives you D major, the 5 chord. Another whole step in 12th position now, switching back to minor, we have E minor, the 6 chord. Up a whole step to F sharp, the 7 chord, and just a little bit tricky here, we're gonna keep that root F sharp on the D string and reconfigure the fingers for our diminished triad shape, fingers 4, 2, and 1. I like to resolve up to G again in the higher octave, and then take it back down, going back through each chord, and I realize I'm going through this a little bit quick. If this is brand new material for you, you definitely want to skip back and go through it a few times with your guitar. If, on the other hand, you already know this or it feels easy, try sequencing it in thirds or even improvising with it, because you don't really know it until you can play it in a variety of permutations, starting from any point within the series. I also recommend sometimes playing through these one note at a time, because it's really helpful in terms of ear training. So I'm going through it one more time like that before we move on to inversions. For today, we're going to keep things simple by just looking at the major triad and its 2 inversions. Minor triads have inversions as well, but we'll save those for another lesson. So when you look at the shapes, we're starting on that root position triad from before, taking it up to this new shape, which is the first inversion, and up again to the second inversion, which we get by simply barring across the 3 strings. Now, if these shapes are new to you, it might take a little bit of practice to get them fully ingrained in your muscle memory. But one trick you can use is to keep your 3rd finger on the D string, and when transitioning from root position to first inversion, you'll notice all you need to do is swap strings with your 1st and 2nd fingers. Second inversion, again, is a simple shape to remember, but just make sure you're not pressing too hard into a hyperextension of that 1st knuckle. At some point through all of this, you may have been wondering, what are inversions anyway? Where do they come from? Or how are they related to each other or to the original root position triad? And before I answer this, I have to say that for some reason, most people learn this wrong. Most people learn that you can find the next inversion by moving the bottom note of the chord up an octave to the top of the chord. And while this does get you the right answer in some cases, it's not actually how you find the next inversion, and it will sometimes get you into trouble. The real way to go about making an inversion is to look at the notes in your original chord and move each voice up to the next available chord tone. So in this case, G moves up to B, B moves up to D, and D moves up to G. This method will always get you the correct answer for finding the next inversion of a chord, no matter what kind of chord or how complicated its voicing. And in case you want a technical definition, an inversion is simply the reordering of the notes in a chord so that you have a different note in the bass. Now that you understand a little bit more about triads and inversions, let's look at how we can use these shapes to achieve smooth voice leading between your 1, 4, and 5 chords. Let's start by simply playing 1, 4, 5, 1. We're starting down low on the neck with the goal of staying in one position. So we go from this G major root position shape to C major second inversion. We shift down for the first inversion, D major, and then back to root position G. This is a good time to remind yourself that these shapes come from your root on the E string and root on the A string major bar chords. And the last one comes from a lesser known larger shape that I like to call the Roy Orbison major chord, because he used it quite a bit. In any case, it's helpful to see the smaller chord shapes in the context of larger ones that have the root as the lowest note. Let's see if we can achieve the same thing starting up in 7th position. We have our G major first inversion shape. Keeping the top note, we move up to a C root position, coming back down to 7th position for a D second inversion, and pivoting back to that G triad we started on. I pointed out the common tone between the first two chords because that's something that is really important to notice as you get to understand voice leading. Let's see where the common tones are in this last example. Starting with that bar shape in 12th position, G major, notice that our common tone when switching to the 4 chord is on the G string. Jumping down to D major, you'll notice another common tone on the D string as we shift back to G. Once you start to get the hang of these, you'll be able to freely voice lead and improvise around the neck, creating some very colorful progressions and ideas. You can even start to mix in melodic connecting notes between your chord choices. I know this lesson was a little dense. There's a lot in here, but I feel like these concepts all relate to each other, and to look at how they work together is an essential step that you need to become a better guitarist and musician. So feel free to bookmark this and come back to it. It might take a few times through before it really sinks in. Alright, that's it for today. Find a link in the description to my Patreon where you can support me for as little as $2 a month. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave a comment, and I hope you like and subscribe for more tips, tricks, and secrets from Level Up Guitar.